Hello, all right, welcome to today's class. Last time we designed this beautiful user interface where we talked about all the selectors we have in CSS, and I seriously encourage you to get this particular course. You see all these kind of effects we did a whole lot how to create this beautiful interface between studio classes and studio elements. So I encourage you to actually get it and then try to not just watch it but then try to follow along and know what we actually did there, which is very important. However, today I have a very beautiful thing or topic to treat today in CSS. So after this we'll be having two other classes. After this particular class there'll be one more class and then one other class, and then we are practically done with CSS. And then what I'll be doing is I'll be setting up at least 10 different projects we'll be doing in CSS. 10 different projects we'll do in CSS. So I'm going to design like 10 different websites in CSS. Alright, okay, without any further ado, I will quickly get over to what we have for today. Alright, let me go a quick one. Let me just go back here. So I'm going to do the download page. If you've been following us, you see that we've done some of this. So most of these links are working, all of them. We are having stuff inside all of them. If you click on login, if you click on contact, which is the last one we did, and then you see the higher we're going, the better the look and the better features we're adding to the website, making it more modern and all that. And then so today we'll be talking about we're going to work on the download page. After that, work on the help page, which should be the last class. So we have like 2 classes left to finish up with CSS. And today is power packs. Okay, there are a lot of things I'm going to be talking about today. So without any further waste of time, I'm going to create a file here. So I'm going to call it download .html. All right. So that is going to be the file we'll be working with. Okay. And I'm going to pull everything we have in our a contact page. So Ctrl A, Ctrl C. I'm going to close that off and then come over to our download page and paste that. And now I don't need everything here. So all I need here is to pick. I'm going to clear everything in the body. So everything in the body, I'm going to clear it out. Or maybe I'll just leave the footer and section 1. Yeah, leave that. And then the H1 here, simply say download page for now. Alright, so let me zoom in a little bit here so I can see it better. One more. Okay, I think this should be okay. So I'll save. So if I click on download page now, it should redirect me to that page. Okay, sorry, on the home page we haven't linked it. So on this this should be the about us page, I think. So go to the about us page. Yeah, the download page is still asterisk. So we're going to remove the asterisk and call it download.html and save. That's what we need to do. So close it off, make sure minimize that, and then click on. You see, now it's blue in color. So I just click on that, and this is our page. Okay, so far it's already looking cool. The download page. Okay, so that's what we'll be working with. That's what we'll be working with. And you know what? In fact, I'm going to let me clear it. I'm going to clear the page so that you will start with a fresh new page. So I'm going to clear that. And then the body, I'm going to leave this one. So I'm going to clear that. If I save, because I'm using lifesaver, so you just see the download page. Alternate Z to just put it together. So we're on the same page right now. So today I want to talk about a whole lot of concepts in design. So this is like more of UI design concepts. If you take our UI UX design class, you see we'll talk about some concepts like this. Alright, concepts in CSS design. 8 fundamental concepts in CSS design. One of the concepts we want to talk about is the concept of margin and padding. What is margin? Most of the time people misunderstand this whole concept. So to put it simple, margin is simply the space around an element border. Okay, when you have an element and there's a border around it, okay, that is the space between that. If I come back over here, let me just undo quickly. So if I save this file now, come over here, you see that this is an element. This box is an element, and then there's this border around it. The space you're seeing between this footer and then the edge of this system is actually the margin. Some people call it allowance or just space. Just the space is just like after building a house, you have a parking lot kind of a thing. So that's the margin, that's the space, okay, between that. But when you talk about padding, we're talking about the space inside the container itself. For example, from where this W is to the edge of this container is the padding. Okay, while from this edge of this container to the edge of this place is the margin. Now that's simple to understand. Okay, so that's what we have. It says CSS that margin is actually the space around an element or border, the border of an element, while padding is actually the space within the element border, and then the element itself and this container, the container containing that particular element you're talking about, or the content, which is the write-up, the what do you want to call it, the typing, character, whatever thing that is inside there. Okay, that's it. So if you want to put it another way, you say that margin property controls the space outside what the element, while padding controls the space within that the space within the element. All right, so margin is outside, padding is inside. Two of them are spaces, and then they work almost the same way. In fact, practically they work the same way. So that's what margin is, that's what padding is, and we're going to go through it in a minute. So we'll go through it together. I'll explain all of them, give the examples and what it is. Then we'll come back and talk about the text formatting, the display properties, and so many other things we need to talk about today. As you can see, I already have it lined up. All right, so don't go anywhere. Just pick up your system, whatever thing you're coding with, and then code along with me. I suggest you code along. Okay, anything I do, just try to do it together so you can understand what we're doing. All right, coming back here, I'm still going to wipe this off. All right, so if I save, we should be on the plain page. Now what I'm going to do is simple. I'm going to design, I'm going to talk about margin in a way that is, even if this is the first time you're hearing about it, you're going to understand it completely. All right, so I'm going to create a div. So this div is going to serve as the first one. So I'm going to say I'll just call it margin 1, for example. Okay, I'll just call it margin 1, and then I'll save it, and then I have margin 1 here. Okay, so I'm going to give these divs a particular style. So come over to my CSS. Remember last time we linked our CSS file. So under here I'm going to put a comment saying margin and padding. Alright, margin and padding. Just put this up. Alright, so here remember we talked about ID, so I'm going to use an ID to, or let's use a class since there are going to be many of them. So for the class I'll just call it margin. Okay, you can call it anything. I can even call it M or something. Okay, so I'll leave it as margin for now. So if I come over here and I capture that class here, okay, and say margin. So I'm going to say, for example, let's change the color of the text to be of course white. Then if I save, now the text is actually white. Okay, don't mind the space you're having here already, because there's been a style we added before now. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I want them to have the same stuff. So I'm going to have a background of background color of for now I'll just do a background color of something that is visible that we can actually see, and save. Okay, and that's not visible definitely. So I'll use let me use blue. Yeah, dark blue, that's fine. Alright, so this is the container, this particular container that has this class. Alright, so what I will do is simple. I'm going to duplicate it into, let's say, a couple of times. So let's call this one margin 2, let's call this margin 3, and then let's call this margin 4. Alright, so if I save, I have these stuffs like this. Okay, then look at what will happen. So we're going to play around with all of them. So I'm going to use inline styling just to make it look just to make you to understand what we are doing. Okay, because if I style it from here, I mean it's still cool, but then we need to start capturing each and every one of them one after the other. Alright, so if I come over here, I'm going to say style, I want to say margin. Now I want to apply margin. Now there's a way margin works, very simple, very simple. So I'm just going to say margin, let's just imagine 10, for example, 10 pixels. You need to measure it in pixels. So if I save, see what happens. You see this particular one now has 10 pixels around it. So 10 pixels on the left, 10 pixels on the right, 10 pixels here and 10 pixels here. Now let me show you what I mean in a minute. So I'm going to drag out this tab, and I'm going to maximize it. Then I'm going to do Ctrl Shift I, or go to developer tools, then go to more tools, developer tools, sorry. Okay, so if I go to elements, for example, these are elements in this container. I want to show you something here. I'm going to close this off. Now if I scroll down here, I want you to notice this box here. Inside this box there is margin. Okay, this is the box here. You see, if I hover on it, it shows us that this is the margin around this stuff. And then if I enter, this is the border. There's the line you're seeing. Okay, the line after that margin, or before that margin actually. Then after that you see the padding. Okay, there's actually no padding here, but let's see if we can add padding from here. So inside here, I can't even edit it, can I? I don't think I can edit it. But if I spread this up, you see that I have margin on the top 10 pixels, I have margin on the right 8 pixels, I have margin on the bottom 8 pixels again. Okay, sorry, 8 pixels and 8 pixels. So left, bottom, right, this. Now I want to observe something. If you look at margin here, margin simply is 8 pixels, but then this 8 pixels is for the whole body. Okay, so it's happening on the top, right, bottom, left, top, right, bottom, left. Now I'm going somewhere. Now once I break this down, you understand exactly what I'm saying. Okay, so which means what it's simply saying is that this margin that is 8 pixels is applied all around it. What if you want it to be applied only on one side? Of course you get it right. What it means, you just call margin top, and the margin will only be applied at the top. If you say margin right, it's going to be applied only at the right. If you say margin left, and so on. Alright, let's see this thing in a practical aspect. Alright, so in practical aspect now, so instead of saying margin 10 pixels, in fact let me make it 20 pixels, but then I'll come over here and say I want it just on the right, which is this other side. So if I save, you see there's a margin of 20 pixels on the right here. If I say I want this margin on the left, and if I save, you see the margin actually, there is actually this space on the left here. Then if I come over here and say I want it on the top, okay, let me make this 50 so it will be obvious. So if I save, you see I have margin 50 space, 50 pixel space between this download page, test, and the margin. All right, so that is how simple margin is. Very simple. If I do it on the bottom too, the same thing is applicable. You see, so there's actually a space between this guy and the next element. That's what we're saying. But the same cannot be said for padding. If you put this to, if you change this to padding now and save, you see that it's actually the same thing. But the only thing that this space is actually inside the container and not outside the container. Remember, if you use margin, you're talking about outside the container. That's why you are seeing this background of this test. But if you change it the other way around, sorry, if you change it the other way around to padding, alright, yeah, so you see that it's actually the other way around. Very simple. Okay, that is how margin is, and that is how it is. Alright, very simple to understand that. Okay, now I'm going to just put it through. So I'm going to use this one for margin. So I'm going to say margin bottom, okay, of that. Okay, or let's do maybe like 30. Okay, that is how it is. So if I want to add margin to all of them, okay, I could simply come over here since they are all connected, and I can add margin to all of them. Okay, that is sweet, that is okay, but then that is not what I want to do. That is not what I want to do. Okay, what I want to do is simple. I want to come over here and give them different margin. Okay, I want to give them different margin. Since this is like this, okay, what if I come over here, let me wipe this a bit. Okay, now they're together. What if I want to write margin from the CSS here, or even where we are writing it anyway? Okay, so we could actually write it from there. So I'm going to select this middle element, that's this is margin 2, so I'm going to call it margin 2. Okay, I'm going to give it a class of margin, then margin 2. So you're going to have class of margin and then class of margin 2. And remember, when an element has these two classes, we select them together. So if I save, the style is stay there. But then if I come over here and I want to select that particular margin 2, it means I need to select the class of margin first, and then I'll say the one that have class of margin and also have the class of margin dash 2. Now what I'm saying is simple. If I give this in space, it's no longer what it is. It simply means there's an element, watch here, there's an element that has a class of margin. Inside that element that has a class of margin, there's another element inside that element that has the class of margin 2. So it's not talking about two elements. One is the parent element having a class of margin, the other one is another element having the class of margin 2, which is not what is happening. Of course, if I save anything here and run this code, it's not going to run because there's nothing like this. Okay, however, if I come over here and change this stuff and then put them together, now what I'm saying is that there's an element that has a class of margin and also has a class of margin 2, which is exactly what we have here. See, an element that has a class of margin and also have the class of margin 2. That's the one I want to deal with. Okay, so come over here and I'm going to say that element, I want to give it a margin. Okay, now remember, if I say I want to give it a margin of 20 pixels, okay, and if I save, it means it will have margin of 20 pixels all around it. That's what I'm saying. So there's 20 pixels at the top, right, bottom, left. However, I can actually split this thing into several means. Now look at this. Now this is how it actually flows. I can actually say this is the top, right, I meant right, bottom, and I have left. Now this is how it's arranged. Any value I put here becomes the top position or the top space I want to have there, and so on as well. Let's do this practically so you see what I'm saying. So I'm going to duplicate this while I comment this out. So for the top, let's say on the top I want margin of 20 pixels. On the right, which is this side, okay, this side, let's say I want margin of let's say I want margin of 10 pixels, for example. Then unimportant. Alright, so what I need to do is this. Okay, let's interpret this. So on the top I have space of what, 20 pixels. On the left I have the other one. So let's analyze this. I'm going to copy this URL, I'm going to drag this out, then I want to use it and test that stuff. So I'm going to come over here, paste that URL and paste it. So I have this margin. Okay, so if I do Ctrl+Shift+I, I'm going to open our developer tools. Now I want to inspect this element. So if I click here and inspect this element, you see that in this particular element the margin, there's no, okay, look at this one, you see, yeah, so you can see it from here that this element has, if I click on it now, if you come over here, you see what we are saying. So this element has, on the top it has 20%, 20 pixels margin. On the right it has 10 pixels margins. On the bottom, and so on. So this is how we can actually use our code to come over here and analyze this way. However, if you notice something very quickly, you see that on the right the margin is 10 pixels. Also on the left the margin is what, 10 pixels. What we could do is this. I could Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, and okay, before I comment that out, and then I'll remove this last one. What I'm not saying is that, please, here I want on the top I want the margin of 20 pixels on the top, then on the left and the right I want the margin of 10 pixels, and on the bottom I want the margin of 50 pixels. Let's see if we get the same result. So save, and we get the same result. In fact, if we go back over to our inspector element here, you see that here, if you come over to the let's inspect again, click on this icon here, inspect element, click here, you see that when we come over here, where is it? Yeah, we come over and notice this one is cancelled. Okay, but they're actually doing exactly the same thing. Okay, if I comment this one out and leave this one, you see nothing changes. The UI, this UI is still the same way it is. Okay, but however they are doing exactly the same thing. That is one way to work with our margin. Now there's another way to write margin that is also very, very important. Now let's assume we want to write margin. So margin, if I can spell, alright, so margin, so I want to write margin on this. Okay, what I want to do is I can just say I want margin on the top and on the bottom. Margin on the top and bottom. The margin I want on the top is 20 pixels for the top and bottom, and the left and right I want margin of 50 pixels. So I have to just shrink it up a little bit. Alright, so if I save, you see what we have. Alright, let's inspect again. If I come over here and inspect this element this time around, click here, inspect element, you see that on the margin now I have, if I drop it, I see on the top I have margin of 20 pixels, on the right I have margin of 50 pixels, on the bottom I have margin of 20 pixels, and on the left I have margin of 50 pixels. And this is how margin work. Very, very, very simple. Very, very simple. And the same exact thing can be said about the padding. Okay, so the margin and the padding exactly the same way they work. Okay, so if I change these things to padding, it gives me the same thing, the same exact result. Look at what I'll do. I'm going to change the background of this element to something different. Okay, and then I'm going to change this to padding. So let's see if it's exactly the same thing. So if I save, you see it's exactly the same thing. This is our element, exactly the same thing. Let's use something a little bit dark, like let's use red. Whoa, that's too much. All right, but then that's what we have. So you see it's exactly the same thing that we have with the margin. Okay, so if I go over it then and inspect this around with a padding, so click there, you see that the padding now is actually, if we drop it down here, see the padding on the top is the same thing. So margin and padding has the same exact functionality. The difference is that margin is at the outside of the container, while padding is on the inside of the container, but they're exactly the same thing. All right, very, very important. You see how I can play around with my tools here. Okay, I can come over here and play around with my tools. Okay, try to find out which one is working. It's also a way of debugging your code. Of course, we'll get to that at some point. All right, so that is how margin and padding works. Very, 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 very simple. All right, so if you have any question, I want you to drop a comment, and tell me where you're finding it difficult. But for the most part, this is how margin and padding works. So all you need to do is just replace all this margin, replace this margin with padding, and then you are good to go. And test it out and see how it is. And then I'll see you on the next. Alright, so the next one I want to talk about is the text formatting. Okay, the text formatting, and this is simple. This is just the styles we give to our text. Okay, when the text element, that's alphanumeric characters that you type on your system, like I just type these words or sentence or paragraph, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so the style we give to them. Okay, this style we give to this term, and then using the text formatting properties, that is how we work on it. For example, we have something called text align, which we use it to set the text either in the right alignment or center alignment or left alignment or justify alignment. All right, so and then we have the text transform properties, which we use to place our text in different angles or location, or in different way in our application. All right, also have the one that accompanies it, which is the position property. We'll talk about it under here. But let me just put that. Talk about the position property. Okay, position. All right, position property. Position. All right, so sorry about that. Okay, so that's what we'll talk about. Let's talk about the test. How do we design tests? How do we work with tests in our work, in our project or something like that? All right, so before I do that, I'll just come over here and then quickly I'll just add small padding around that stuff what we just designed, and then it should be I'll just do 10 pixels padding, and if I save, then it's looking a little bit better because of these extra spaces are added here. Okay, very, very important to know that. All right, so the next thing I want to do is to talk about the test align. Let's say we have a couple of tests in our work, so I'll just do a quick BR here, line break. Then for I'll just use article test. Inside it, I'll just have a paragraph. Okay, and the paragraph here, what I'll be doing is simple. I'll just say this, if I can type, is a paragraph. All right, this is a paragraph, and if I save, I have this is a paragraph. Wow, where is the style coming from? From the previous classes we've done. All right, so this is a paragraph, very, very simple. And you see how the borders were, this border property, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, right here. Yeah, talk about border, how to do that, border radius. Okay, so you see it's looking quite very sharp. Okay, So don't mind the bright colors I'm using. It's just so that you can illustrate it very well. So you see where exactly the effects or changes are being effected or made in the application. Alright, so this is a paragraph. I want to format the text. There are a few things you can do to the text. Now I can align it to the left, to the right, and so on. So let's look at that. So I'm going to give it a class, or since it's just one, let's give it an ID. Okay, so let's say an ID of test. Okay, and save. Of course, nothing will happen. Go to our CSS, our style. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put a comment and say working with what paragraph. This file will be maybe I will upload it to GitHub or something. I'm not sure yet, but before the end of the class, I will know where to upload it so that we can, you know, lay hand on it and then use it and do something. Okay, paragraphs / text formatting. Alright, so that's what we want to do. Take it up a little bit. Alright, okay, so remember we give it an ID. So ID is, you get ID with asterisk. So hashtags, ID mean is class, we do what? Dot. We color that in our other classes. So just pick up the link and then view those classes. Alright, so if I open up this stuff, what I want to do is simple. I want to align this thing to be already is at the left. So if I say align test align, sorry, if I say test align, oh god, I don't know why I cannot type this today. So test align. Now there are different properties I can get. I'm not seeing them, but with VS Code there's a short command. If I hold down my control key and press spacebar, I'm going to get all these beautiful things I can add to my website. Something like this is a function calculator. We talk about it. It's our last class. Part of our last class. Talk about functions and variables and how to import stuff with CSS. Talk about things like media query, you know, animation, stuff like that. Part of the last class. It's going to be a little bit lengthy. We'll cover all this stuff in there. Alright, so I want to just anticipate that anyway. So here we have test align. So let me say I want to align this test to the center. Okay, let's look at that end. I don't know what it will do. Okay, see, it will take it to the end of the paragraph. Okay, you can also have a start. You can also have start. I guess I'm not sure here. I can have start, which brings it back exactly where it was before. Okay, and then let me make the color obvious. So I just change the color to red so that it should just be obvious as it's moving. Yeah, and also make it bold and so on. So you use color property to color your text and make it so that it will be colored. Alright, so but let me finish up with alignment. So under alignment, of course, you still have the left alignment, which is exactly where it is now. So this left alignment will always be at the left. Then we'll have the center alignment to make it at the center. So if I save, now the text is at the center of this paragraph. And then we also have the right alignment. And if I save, now it's at the right part of the text. Then we'll have the one called justify. But justify, you don't notice it from this text. If I save, it will still be here, but you don't notice the difference. But let me show you the difference. So if I come over here and then I'm going to pick a paragraph and I'm going to use lorem test. Let me say I need 50 demo. Okay, let's do 30 demo test and press enter, and it's going to give us this demo test here. I can use to control save, and I have this particular demo test looking good. It's already justified, okay, because I have added the style before now, and then it's justified somewhere here. Let me find it. Control F, then I just use for justify. You see, look at it here. My paragraph is already justified. So if I click here and comment it out and save, okay, now it's no longer justified. See, it's scattered. Alright, so that's what we are saying. So what I could do is to come over here and justify it. Okay, so remember I didn't give it an ID, so I'm going to give it an ID. The same, I can give it the same ID, but I don't want to give it the same ID. I'll just give it another ID. So I'll just call it test2. And if I save, come over here, and then I'll get that ID of test2, and then I say test dash align, and I say justify. If I save, now you see the whole text is aligned at the edge of this word. Okay, see, it's aligned at the edge in a block form. But then if I say like start, for example, or that, you see how it is. If I say end, or maybe right, if I say right or end, anyone, and then you see how it's arranged. Okay, this is how it's arranged. Okay, so it's not looking proper, that kind of thing. So what we'll do is that and you know center, of course, when you center it, it's just at the center and so on. So what I want you to do is just to play around with these things and then see how it suits what you're doing. All right, so these are the things you need to see. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to do here, what if I want the font to be bold? So I can come over here. You see we have stuff here. We have the font size. If I want to increase the size of this element, I can click on font size. I can make it large, medium, extra large, and so on. Extra large. If I click on extra large, and if I save, it's actually this big. Okay, but then instead of using this, I mean this is okay, but what I do, I can actually put the exact figure I need. For example, I can say I need 32 pixels of size of font, and if I save, now it's 32 pixels, so it's almost the same extra large. Okay, but if I want it to be bigger than that, I can also say like 60 pixels, and if I save, now the font is as big as 60 pixels. Okay, that's what we are saying. So you can actually make it even small. Forget about the big, you can even make it in fact up to 8 pixels, and if I save, you see it's actually literally very small, almost unreadable. That is how we can play around with our font. That's how we can play around with our font. That is one. Another thing we can do is that if you open this font, just type font, things will pop up. The font family is also matter. These are the different font families you can add to your work. So I can actually use this system UI stuff. So you can use any font of your choice here, and even download more from the system. I like using Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. That's like the one I like using. You can also use Times New Roman or serif and all that. In our last video I talked about this sans serif, what it actually means. What sans means, that's no style. That means not style or no style. Why serif means style. Okay, you can check out the video and see how I talked about it. So if I save now, you see that it's actually the same font that we've been using anyway, because I've already styled it before. If you've been following the course, that it's already been styled in the CSS file that is linked here. Okay, however, if I come over here and if I type font again, you see the one called font weight. That's what I want to deal with. So font weight can range from numbers of 100 to 900. You can also have bold, you can also have bolder, light, and normal, and so on. Alright, so you have inherit, which means it's going to inherit from the parent property. We also have this one, is it 10 or what? I don't know what it's called. Okay, so what I'll do here is most times I just set it to bold, and if I set bold and save, now the characters are really, you know, bold, and then you can actually see them. Okay, let me make this white. Oh yeah, that whatever it is here, so you can actually see them. Now it's actually very bold. All right, so that is that on that. That's what we can do on that. Now there's something I want to do on this paragraph. Okay, let me say I want to space the characters. I can come here and say letter spacing. If I do letter spaces of let me do 2 pixels for example. So I want 2 pixel space between each character. You see, it's actually spacing. If I want 5 pixel space, if I do 5 for example, to be too obvious. You see, this is how I can space the words. Okay, each word in this sentence will have 5 pixel space between one another. So it means 5 pixel space between one another, 5 pixel space between one another, and so on and so forth. Alright, so that is how it is. But then most times you can just use just about 2 or even less than that. Alright, the next one I want to look at is the one called line height. Okay, these are, remember, talking about text formatting, line height. If I click on line height, I'm going to have the height of the line. Most times I just use we have not talked about CSS units, so in one of the courses too I'll talk about CSS units, and then we'll talk about how to make use of CSS unit like rem unit and so on. Then we're talking about, for example, if I do 1.2 rem, now actually 1 rem is equal to let me open this in a minute. Okay, right here, I'll just do it here. So one rem units, 1 rem is equal to 16 pixels. Okay, but we'll have the one I love using, which is EM units. So 1 EM unit is equal to what you define it initially. You can predefine it. Let me say predefined. Okay, you can define it to be 14, 16, whatever thing you want it to be. So this is the one you are defining by yourself. This one is the responsive EM unit or relative EM unit, something I don't know what it's actually called. Okay, so that is how it is. Okay, so what I want to do is simple. Come over here and then look at it. So you see how we can actually play around with this. So if I do rem unit and save, you see it's actually almost how it is. But then if I come over here and say I want something like let's say 6 rem and save, you see That means there will be speed 6 up to 6. 6 rem is 6 is 16 times 6. Yeah. So that's what it's going to be giving us 16 times 6 space between these characters, which is, I mean, it's cool, but then it's not really cool. Okay, so I'm going to do just one rem here and save, and then that's okay. I can do 1.2 or 1.3, anything, but most times, for the most part, you don't really need to even touch this. Okay, but if they say they need line height, for example, line height of 2, if they say it's 2 line, that means you can do something like a 2 rem here, and if I save, then it should be something like this. Sometimes if you're doing project, they tell you they need what was it called again? I think it should be 1.5 spacing. They talk line spacing, line spacing. So that's what it's called in MS Word. So this is actually the kind of line spacing we're talking about. So it will actually be 2 rem, which is 32 pixels. 32 pixels. Yes. All right. So that is how we have what we have in the text formatting, and then we can align another. For the most part, this is much you have to do with the text. Of course, I have shadows, talking about text shadows, borders, and so on. Yeah, shadows. I have text shadows, and so on. I'm still coming to that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But for the most part, this is most of the things you can do with the text. Now, finally, one of the other things you can do with the text is when you type text, you can have text transform properties. Now, if you look at here, there are a lot of things here, so I'm going to talk about a few things. I'll talk about text shadow, we'll talk about it later. So I'm going to talk about text decoration, we'll talk about alignment, we'll talk about the decoration transform. Overflow is just in case if the text is overflowing its container, you need to just adjust it. What we need to do again is come over here. So I'm going to say text transform. Now this is where you change it to uppercase or lowercase or capitalize. So if I say capitalize now and save, each of the first letters will be, and I've covered this in our previous class anyway. So each of the first letter of every word will be in capital letters. If I want all of them to be capitalized, I just turn them to uppercase. If I save, everything will become uppercase. If I want it to be lowercase, of course, then lowercase, and then everything should be lowercase. And that is how it is. But for now, I'm going to turn it to capitalize. All right. So that is how it's going to be. All right. So that is very simple. Then finally, if I type text here, this is the final thing I want to talk about. I'll talk about text decoration finally. So this text decoration, you can either dash the line, dotted line, double line through, overline, underline, and so on. Alright, so but what I want to do is I want to say line through. You kind of cancel the text. If I save, you see there's a line through this text. If I want the line to be under the text, I'll come over here and say underline. If I want the line to be on top of the text, I'll say overline. And I think that's pretty much very simple. It's overline, so the line will be at the top. For now, I think I will leave it like this. It looks weird. Alright, so that is how I'm going to that is the things that are involved in text property. Okay, there are a few other things we'll touch in text property, like there are a lot of other few, not so much anyway, but few other things you can do, like page break, text break, and yeah, page break, so stuff like that, like text, like adding columns and all that. We're going to cover that in display property. One thing I want you to know is that each of the CSS properties and yeah, and method, they already work in a sync. And then following the fundamental principles of programming, you need to understand that there are some places you need to apply this effect, and there are some places you don't need to apply them. There are some places that when you apply them, you actually, you know, mess things up, or it might actually work anyway, but then it will not be a professional way of doing that. So that's why I want you to stick around and stay with us as we actually progress through this series and cover these CSS important properties. Okay, so thank you for staying this long. Proceed. Next, I want to talk about this display or position properties. Okay, display or position properties. Now, under the display properties, of course, we say that display properties specify the display behavior, that the type of rendering box you want to give to an element. What type of rendering do you want to? How do you want to render it? How do you want to be displayed on the DOM? How do you want it to be displayed? Now, before I talk about display property itself, I want to talk about one. Let's call the position property. So position and display CSS property. So I want to talk about those. All right. So under position, it's important to know that we have so for position, I'm going to create boxes here. First of all, I'll do a line break here, do another line break, and then I'm going to create a div. I'm going to create 3 div elements. So I'm going to say times div times 3 tab, and I have 3 div elements, and they for now should be completely empty. If I order my alternate key, because I'm using VS Code and tab, I can actually give them an ID, so each of them will have a unique identifier. So this one will be div1, div2, div3. So I have div1, div2, and div3. So if I want to select all of them, because I want to give them a particular style first, so if I want to select all of them here, I'll come over here. I can use what I call the multiple selector, right? So because they are ID, I'll just do ID of div1, and then ID of div2, and ID of div3. Alright, so what I want to do is simple. Now if I watch what will happen, I want you to notice carefully. If I scroll down here, I'm not seeing anything, okay, except the line break, because there's nothing in the div. They are completely empty, you see, unless if I put stuff inside here now, and if I save, see that something will come up here. Okay, something will come up here. But then, okay, before I do this, let me just put a div here, just in a minute, just to do something. Okay, just div. Then it's not going to contain anything, but I want to just push this page up, so I'm going to use margin now. I'm going to say margin dash top. So margin top of, let's just do 300 pixels and save. Now what I just did is so that I can push this page up. This page you're seeing, extra page, now this extra page is actually the margin 300 I did, so you can be able to see this. That's just what I did. It doesn't really matter. It shouldn't be in your website anyway, just for teaching purposes, excuse me. Okay, for the teaching purposes. Alright, so what I want to do is simple. Now there's nothing inside. If I save, there's nothing in the div. They are completely empty. So if I come over here, I want to put stuffs inside them. Okay, so to do that, if I do background color, watch what will happen. If I do background color of I don't know, let me just do this color and save, nothing will happen. Okay, if I go over here, see, nothing happens. It's not showing. But for me to see it, I need to just give it the width and the height. So now using width and height, watch what happens now. So if I give this one a width of let's just do 150 pixels, I don't need that much. Then I'm going to give it the same height of that, and then save. Now you see that I have a box. Why is it not the same? Width 150, height 150. Oh yeah, it's the same. Of course it's the same. Now these are 3 boxes, remember, and they are all lined up. Okay, they are displayed in a particular form, which is display block, and I'm going to explain what display block is all about in a minute. I'm going to explain what display block is all about in a minute. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just come here, over here, and say I want each of them to have margin bottom of 10 pixels, and then if I save, you see that they're actually 3 boxes. Okay, there are actually 3 boxes. This. So I can actually specify the background color of each and every one of them, slightly different, but it doesn't really matter. They can be the same for now. Now what I want to do is simple. Right here, I want to look at what we call the position property. Now position has these 5 different properties. So position has the position relative, which is by default, that is how an element is positioned. We have position absolute, we have position fixed, we have position sticky, we have position static, and that should be the last one, static. These are the 5 major positions we have in CSS. 5 major positions we have in CSS. So I'm going to put a comment here, come over here and close the comment. Alright, so push this off a little bit. So these are the position properties we have in CSS. Of course, if I come over here and type position, you see, by default it's relative. If I save, nothing will even happen, because already by default, remember, by default an element is relative to its parent container. The parent container of this element now is the what? The body tag, because that's the parents. If you check very well, this is the parents, which is there. Then inside our parents, this is the div, and they actually direct children to the parent element. Now, however, if we want to give it, if we want them to not be that, we can actually swap them. Now to do this is simple. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select div 2. Let's say div 2 is the prodigal son. It doesn't like following the family rules. Therefore, we'll give it a color, a background color of what notorious color can we give it now? Let's give it brown, for example. Okay, and save. Now, if you come over here and I see it's actually brown, okay, then had even talked about border, I can actually give it border, but now I think it's a little bit visible. I can give it white. No, brown is fine. All right. So now I'm going to position it differently. I'm going to say position absolute. Now watch what happens. If I position absolute and save, brand disappears. Here is the brand box. Wow. If I scroll up to the top, I'm not still seeing it. Let's find out where it is. It's still in the DOM, but something have happened. Alright, so let's shift down. Let me make a room here. Alright, scroll to the top, and we should be seeing somewhere here. Let me just find it in a minute. So right here, this is the last one. Second one is nowhere to be found. The first one. So let's scroll up here, and if you look at the second one, you see it's not actually in the page. If I close this, I'm still not seeing it somewhere, but it's somewhere in the page, and then we need to actually find it. All right. Now to do this is simple. Now what happened here is simple. Okay. When we gave it class of absolute, we mean it should no longer obey the family rules. It should no longer be part of the family tree. It should no longer follow their regular pattern. It's just go and use any pattern of its own. Now to bring it back is simple. All we could do is come over here, declare a general. Okay, let me not go down the way top. Let me just come over here. Under here, I'm going to call the body element, which is a universal element, which is the direct parent to the child, to the absolute body. Because what happened now is that the div, once we say position absolute, it means we want it to be absolutely positioned, like let it be outside the body, which is the parents. It's just like saying, child, you have grown up enough, go and find your own family, go and marry, find your own family, you know, and start your own family. So it's no longer part of the family tree, kind of a thing, you know. So I'm going to do position relative here. Relative. Now if I save, you will see that it should be back somewhere. But it's not. I think I should select the HTML too and save, and it's still not back. Wow, this must be a prodigal son. Alright, okay, let me check this out, and it's still nowhere to be found. Alright, but then that's fine. Look at what we want to do. Look at what we're going to do now. Okay, I'm going to create a section. Let me just refactor this here because I want to achieve something so you guys can grab this. So I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to create a section here. Inside that section, I'm going to drop this. Okay, so this is inside the section, and I have this box. And if I save, okay, if I save now, that I'm not supposed to add that. Okay, even if it's there, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, but then it's still position absolute. So what I can do here is to take this position, this particular thing. I'm going to start it right inside here and say position relative. And if I save, now we should be seeing that somewhere here. How come we're not seeing it? Seriously. Okay, give me a minute. Okay. Now what happened is this: when you give an element position, you need to give it the absolute position. Now, okay, in fact this was not necessary anyway. Let me just this was not necessary. I'll remove it. Just comment it out for now. Comment this out for now, and then we should back to what we have now. Because now the element is gone. We can't find it anywhere. Okay, because we need to, when we give an element an absolute position, if in the relative, in fact any position, you need to tell it the explicit place where you want to place it. For example, if I say I want it to be absolute position, I need to give it a top property. So I need to say top 0, and from the left I want it to be 0. and now if I save, our element is right here. So whenever you give it absolute, it means you want it to like get lost, go and start your own family, go and stay on your own tree. But if you just send something out without telling it where to page or something, it just go out and and just get lost. So you need to absolutely tell it, please stay here or stay there. Alright, and you see still maintaining our margin here, very important. Alright, so if I want it to be from top, if I want it to be 50 pixels, I can say 50 pixels from top. If I save, now it's giving us 50 pixels space from the top. In fact, I can even say 50%, which means half of the page. Say 50% and save. Now it's half of the page. You see, it will always be at the middle of the page. No matter where the page starts, it needs to be at the middle of the page. If I say 50 view height, that is as much as your eyes can see. If I save, now it should be at the middle of the page, as much as the eyes can see at that moment. Okay, that is how it is to play around with this. But most times, if you want to start from the beginning, just put 0 and it will be there. This is how position absolute works. This is how it works. Okay, now while position fixed is simple, so for that I'm going to turn this box to white so it will be noticeable. Now while position fixed is simple, what position fixed is that when you fix an element, for example this position absolute, if I scroll up, it goes with the element too, it moves with the body. Okay, no matter where the body flows, it flows with them, even though it has its own absolute position, it has its own defined position that nobody can drag with it. Even if there's nobody there, to just stick itself down and maintain that position. If we want it, because it's now it's covering some element, if you want this element to actually come on top, we can actually use another another property that is related to position that we call z index. So if I do z index of -1, it means go under the previous line. So if I save, now you see it's under this element. Okay, it's under this element. If I take it off and say 1 and save, now it's on top of the element. If I also, the same thing is applicable. If I go to this element, this particular element, and go there and add them and tell them to be up on the upper side, they'll also be on the upper side. Very, very important. So I'm going to comment it out for now, but by default it will always be at the top because that's the last element. Remember, it's the last element here. That's the last element. So they always proceed over this one. Okay, just like last ones. Alright, so now let's talk about the fixed position. So the fixed position fixes an element at a particular position and never removes it no matter what. So for that illustration, I'm going to do here I'm going to just do maybe 20% of the page, and then here from the left I'll just do 50 pixels for example and save. Now this is where this position is. Now what will happen if I scroll up or scroll down? The page will always be where it is. So if I scroll up, you see the white box remains where it is because I fixed it in a position. And then you are wondering why it's entering under this one, because this one is the last one. Remember, the green box is the last one, then this one is second. If you come over here, see that the second box, this is the one we're playing around with, this particular box. You see, this one is actually the last one, so it means it will be on top of it by default, unless you use that z index to now change their behavior. If you bring z index to 1, it means anywhere it appears to be 1. So but then fixed property means that this element will always be fixed in that position, no matter how where the page is, no matter what is going on. If you open this our page and come over and see that it's also here, and that's where it will remain, no matter how the page is. Okay, then we'll have that of sticky. Sticky simply is also a fixed position, but then it is not too stubborn to resist the movement of the page. So when the family is moving or something, it actually follows them and move. Now let's look at sticky. So this is sticky position. I will still leave the same setting. If I save, now the sticky is where it is. When it gets to that position, it's following the other element. Okay, it's following the other element. But once it reaches that sticky position, it will stop and the other one will flow through. Okay, let me push it up a little bit. Or let me push it down a little bit. Okay, 50 position. So if I save, now see what happens. Once it reaches that position, it will stop. Even though it's still moving, but other elements will just be carrying it along. So it will not pass that level. It will just stick to that point and stay. So whenever you see this kind of effect, this is just a normal effect, but you can use this thing and fix a background image on your page. So if you fix an image on your page, it means the image will be moving alongside with the page. But once it gets to a particular point, it will stop moving and continue. Others will continue. Okay. Then you just stop here. If I increase, let me increase this image and show you what actually happens. So let me increase this margin to, let's say, 600 and save. If I keep moving up, you see it continues to move up to that particular position, but when it reaches there, it stops. So it makes it sticky. You see, it makes it sticky. That's what we are saying. All right. I think that should be that. Then finally, I have explained all of them. Finally, static. Of course, static is something that doesn't move. Okay, but static is almost like relative. Now, fixed, sticky, and absolute, they are almost the same. The difference is that absolute means it doesn't obey the family rule. You give it the absolute page, and then that is where it's going to stay. But then it will still be moving around with the family, like with the DOM. So when you move around the DOM, it will still be moving around with the DOM, even though it has its own space, it has its own location. While fixed means it has its own space, it has its own location, it's fixed at a place, but then it doesn't respect the movement of the page. No matter how the page moves, it's always with there. But let's say, for example, where you use fixed position, is where you have something like a WhatsApp button here. I'm going to do that in 1 minute now. I'm going to do that. Then we have also sticky position where you can add to background. So sticky position can be added to background effect. In fact, to be precise, we call it parallax effect. If you have heard about it, parallax effect in CSS, which we also cover as we progress. Parallax effect. If I got the spelling right anyway. So fixed position is something like chatbot button. That's something like chatbot button, BTN. Okay, for chatbot, which I'm going to design in a minute, and I've already explained this. And so sticky is almost static is the same thing as relative, but the only thing it has a little property of what absolute. Let me show you that. So static, if I save, you see, it's also position. It's actually where it is. You know, it's moving along with the page. You might not really even notice any difference between it and the page, as in the parents. Okay, it's still the same way it is. Okay, obeying the family rules and all that. So it's almost the same thing with what relative, except that if you don't want to use relative, you want it to be like on its own, but let this thing follow every other thing the family is doing, you can do that. Alright. So classwork, let's design a very little button here for our chatbot. So to do that, I'll come over here, under here before the button ends. I'm going to create a div. You can use anything, but I'm going to use a div. So inside this div is going to be a design. So design is going to be an image. Okay, I'm going to have an image of chatbots. Okay, it might not even be an image. It can be a button. Okay, let's say it's a button, for example. I just say chat. I just call it chat. Okay, I just say normally I can add font and so on. Of course, we get to all of those things. So under here, I'm going to have an ID. I'll just call it chat and save. Okay, so if I go to CSS, I'm going to design our chatbot just right under here. So right under here, I'm going to give an ID of chat. So what I'm going to do is very simple, though we'll still explain it as we progress. This is just an exercise for this particular class. So what I want to do is just come over here and say I want the width of that chatbot to be, let's say, maybe 100 pixels, and then I want the likewise to the height. Alright, so if I save and go over there, I should be seeing this chart there, and then I want it to be seen. I want it to be a circle, so I'm going to say border, because I want it to have a line around it. So I think border 2 pixels. I want it to be solid line. I want it to be, why not green? So I'll use that green. So if I save, I'll have this green box here. Alright, so but I want it to have a background button, a background color of maybe that. Okay, then if I save, that's the background color. Okay, then I don't want it to be square, I want it to be circle. Meanwhile, this 100 is too much. I'm going to make it 50. Alright, so if I save, then it should be much more smaller. Good. So I want it to be a circle, or a circle. So I'm going to say border dash radius. Just do 50% and save. And if we go over here now, it's a circle. Okay, and it's a circle. So I want to add small padding because of this. I want to add small padding there, so the text will be properly positioned. So if I add padding all around it, I want padding of 10 pixels, not much. If I save, I should be looking much better. Yeah, almost much better, So I think I will do 12 pixels instead. So save, and then it's still not looking too good. So instead here I'm going to do hold on here. So let's do 65 pixels and see how it looks like. Yeah, much better. Alright, so I can leave this here, and then let's change this to 0 and see what happens. Okay, I'll leave it like that, but that's not where I want the button to be, of course. In fact, if you want to add text shadow, you can just use text shadow, which we are going to cover in a minute. Text shadow, I'll just do 0 pixels, 4 pixels, 4 pixels. I'll do RGB color, which you don't need to worry about it right now. RGB A, add A here. So I'm going to make this 0, this should be 0, this should be 0, this should be 0, comma, just 0.5. Let's see. Now we should be having, why am I not feeling anything? Let's do 0.7. Okay. Oh, it's on the text, not text shadow, sorry. I want to do box shadow on the box. Okay, save. So it should be on the box now. Yeah, on the box. So I have this button now. It's looking much, I think much better. Alright, so the text is also this side. I want it to be bold, so I'll come over here and then say remember font dash weight. So if I say font weight, I want it to be bold, and if I save, the font should be looking bold. Okay, that's chart. Okay, another thing I want to do, I want when I bring my mouse here, I want it to turn to pointer hand. So I can come over here and say cursor pointer, and if I save, and if I come over here, you see the cursor changes to pointer. Now finally, what I want to do, I don't like where it is, I want it to be here somewhere at the position here. So what do I do? Remember the position property, I just say position. What do I do now? Absolute, Abby? No, not absolute, I fix it. Okay, because I want it to be there wherever the page is. Let's just be there. If I say absolute, okay, I will check, we'll fix it in a minute. So fixed, if I fix it and save, nothing is going to happen. It's going to, I think, disappear. Let me see. Yeah, to disappear just like absolute. But I need to give you the position. So instead of using top now, because we're counting from the bottom, I will just say bottom. I'll say bottom 0, and then I want right because I want it to be a right. I will say right 0. And if I save, see where our button is now, and it's too close, man. It's too close. So let me just do 10 pixels, and then we should be wrapping up. So 10 pixels here, and then save. Yeah, much better. Okay, so I have this button here that we can use to chart in this area. So no matter where I scroll, it will always be there. So anywhere I scroll, the button will always be there. Then to make sure that it will not overlap, for example, let me show you one error that is going to come up here. If I come over here, I'll just say paragraph, loading text of that, and save. See what happened. Okay, if I come over here, okay, it is okay. The bug is not there. Okay, I was thinking it's going to be overlapping, but then it's not. Okay, but then to prevent that from actually happening, remember setting this. So you can just come over there. I just come over here and make sure we add Z in this. Of can do 1000 just to make sure it's always on the top. Okay, so no matter where the element is, it's always be on top. So if I go over here, it's actually cool. Alright, so this is how I can make a little bit chatbots there. I hope you're able to understand this exercise, and then it's quite simple. Let's do it in such a way that when you hover on it now, let's say when you hover on this button, it changes color, or it can even do things. Alright, so to do that is simple. I'm going to take this chatbot. Okay, sorry, not chatbot actually, we're just designing the button. We can also do chatbot anyway, but when the time comes. So I'm going to say on hover. So whenever it's hovered on, I want to change the color to something else. Alright, so what I want to do, I can want to swap these two colors. Let me bring this over here. So first, so I want the background color to change to green to start with, and then I want the text color to change to maybe white. Okay, I'll say text color. You know what, let me remove that. So I want the color, that's the color of the text. Come on, that's column, which you can use in text too. I didn't mention that. Okay, I'll do column just in a minute now. Alright, so color of white. Alright, and if I save, if we now come over here, if we hover on this, you see it changes to that color, which is cool, and it's changing like pretty much fast. So I don't want it to be that fast, so I'll just add transition. Very important, just add transition. Well, everything I want it to take 0.3 seconds to transit, and I want it to be ease in, ease out. That's all. Save, and if I transition, you see it takes a little bit moment before it changes, swaps the color, right? So that's how I can do this very simple thing. Something. So I want to do a paragraph with column, just very wrapping up everything. It's already getting too long. So I'll come over here, make sure I wipe this. Make sure I wipe that, and I'm going to get a paragraph. Learning test of let's do 500. Okay, now we have 500 demo test. Whoa, that's much. So I'm going to just collapse it here. Click here. How can I collapse this? Can't even collapse it. All right. So I'm going to add a property of let's give it an ID. I'll call it col, okay, for column. So if I save, it's looking like it's not really looking good. So to style it, I'll just come over here and then make sure I give it a style of test. Okay, I'll just pull this. Here is the test here. Let's pull this. Why is it not styled? Let me check a minute. Yeah, okay, I have article test. Okay, sorry. So I should have article, yeah, test. So that it will have that style, it will be easier for us. So come over here, make sure I close it here, and if I save, good, much better. So that's how I want it to be. Now it's not actually styled, it's not really looking good. So what I want to do is simple. I'll come over here, and then remember that I gave it a test of a class, an ID of code. So I'll come over here and just say ID of code for column. Okay, so what I want to do first of all, I want to give it a little bit style so it will look good. So I'm going to justify it, and then I think that, yeah, only justify it is fine. You don't know what I can do there. No, so I'll just justify it. So I'll come over here and just say what? Can you guess that? Test what? Align. I want to what? Justify. That's why if I save, see now it's looking much better. Now there's a property called column. Or columns actually. If I want 2 columns, I just put 2 here, and if I save, now this text becomes 2 columns. Okay, it will make sense if we are viewing it on a bigger page like this. So if you come here, it's not a 2 column document or page. If I want it to be 3, of course you can guess, just make it 3. If I want it to be 4, make it 4 and 5 and so on. Okay, what we can do is, by the time we do media coding, we can look at how we can, as I shrink, if I shrink this page, if I expand this page, the column will expand, the column will become 3, 4, something like that. Like as it is now, I can even make it 4, and it will still be okay. You see, 4 columns. Okay, but we want to do a media coding whereby if you shrink this page, if you come to a particular size, screen size, no longer be 4. You see, it's actually overflowing. This text is actually overflowing. That means it's showing outside this container. And to prevent that, we need there's a property called overflow. Overflow. We can use S for now. We can say overflow wrap. We'll just say wrap. Overflow wrap means, okay, before I do that, let me just do overflow hidden. So I just say overflow S and Y. Just if you use only overflow, means for 2 of them, but if you use overflow S and say hidden, you can do anything, but I'll just say hidden. You can say scroll. So at this scroll bar, I'll do a scroll bar on your page, just like here. There's a scroll bar here. You can scroll. Okay. So if you don't want that to happen, you can just say hidden, and if I save, come over here now, the overflow is hidden. You're no longer seeing it. It's no longer overflowing from here. No matter how you shrink it, it will not longer overflow. If you overflow, it will stay inside the text. It will not come outside. See? So say overflow hidden. That's what we can do with that. Very, very important. But the best way to do it is actually to say overflow wrap. That means if it overflows, let it go to the next line. Let the content go to the next line, and that's the best way to do it. So if I actually overflow now, instead of cutting the content, you see the content is adjusting itself, and then enter the next. Even though it's overflowing a little bit, right? But then the best way is also to what? Just do that. Alright, you can actually put 2 of them if you want. for them to work in a sync. Alright, so but then of course you use media query to control this. We'll talk about media query, which is a design concept or pattern, architectural design pattern for building mobile applications and desktop applications. Alright, so that's what we can do on that. Okay, so this video is already taking too long, so it's like I'm going to do a part B of this where I explain the remaining concept. Okay, remember we stopped at position, so the next concept will continue from display, then transform, translate, and so many other things. I don't want it to get too long, so I want it to take it bit by bit. So this year we're going to stop. I'm going to stop the recording now. Then I'm going to do the second part where we'll talk about the display properties, which are quite simple. So to even initiate that, and display properties are just few. We have the display block. Okay, we have the display block. We have the display inline. We have the display flex. We have the display grid. Then we have the display, a combination of some of these ones. Like we have display inline block. Let me show you what I mean. We can have display inline dash block. We can have display inline flex, display inline grid. You know, stuff like that. There's no difference in inline grid, but display inline flex, display inline block, display block, then stuff like that. So it's kind of a combination of some of them. So that's what we'll be looking at in our next class. So I suggest you actually stay with us, because with this, after this, we're going to be doing a project where we will build a UI, user interface, very, very important, and that's going to be actually our download page. This is going to be a sandbox. Okay, so then we're going to design our download page after that tutorial, because after that I'm going to be talking about, after display, I'm going to talk about the transform, translate, and I'll go a little bit in depth with that. Then after that, I'll talk about the background properties, how to set background properties on your page. Then I'll talk about the border, which I already talked about the border. Just go through it. Even the shadow, I've already mentioned that. Then after that, I'm going to go into another very, very important topic that I caption. I'm saying this so you know where we are driving at. Okay, that time is going to be CSS units. Okay, I'm going to talk about CSS units and values too. Okay, CSS units and values. Then when we talk about that, immediately after that, it means like you are like 50% done with CSS. Then the other things we'll be talking about will be like, if you have the curriculum, you can check it out. The other things we have there will not be stuff like media query, animations, variables, methods. So that's why I said we have 2 extra classes to go through. So after the next class, which I'll cover these things, the upper class I will not talk about some of the deep concepts in CSS and design. So I can now fire that from there. So thank you so much for staying this long. I'm sorry if it took a lot of your time, but then I needed to explain these things in depth, so you can be able to grab it at any point, at any day. All right, so feel free to practice with this. You can send me your source code. Let me view your code and see if it's actually working the way our own is working. Okay, in the background property, we're going to look at how to even add some image to this, adding image through CSS and all that, adding background image and so on. All right, so I want you to stay with us as we progress in this course, and as you do that, the sky is your starting point. Thank you.